Welcome back to the Naval News segment. Today's first story comes to us from USNI News. Credit to journalist Dazirhan Mahadazir. He writes, Danish Navy frigate kills 4 pirates in the Gulf of Guinea anti-piracy mission. From the piece, the Royal Danish Navy frigate HDMS Esbern Snare F342 engaged pirates on Wednesday during an anti-piracy deployment in the Gulf of Guinea, West Africa, killing 4 pirates, capturing the remaining 4. The ship is responding to reports of pirate activity and headed to the scene where sending its embarked MH-60R helicopter and advanced to observe the area. According to a Thursday news release, the Danish Armed Forces, the helicopter sighted the speedboat that afternoon with 8 men on board in the vicinity of merchant ships. So the merchants are doing their thing, calling out, sounding their whistles, and this helicopter comes in to observe. They observe a boat carrying a number of piracy tools, including ladders. So obviously, you don't need a ladder to go fishing. These aren't just fishing people. So they're very suspicious at this point. By the evening, and this is where it gets confusing, because whether or not there's daylight makes a big difference in this story. But by the evening, the Esbern Snare was close enough to launch its rigid hull inflatable, or RIB, carrying the Danish Special Forces personnel, and called the boat to halt and permit boarding. So this boat that they're going after is not exactly this one, but something similar to this. This little wooden craft here has 8 people on board, and they have piracy tools like a ladder and stuff has been observed. So they send one of these little rigid hull inflatable boats, this boat right here, very similar to this one, out to go and board it and investigate it. Again, not the specific photo of the incident, but just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And this is why daylight is really important, because in the evening is very ambiguous as to how well the how good visibility was for the pirates. Okay, now I'm not having any sympathy for the pirates, but assuming the pirates don't have a radio, they're not going to be able to contact them bridge to bridge and say, hey, slow down, pull over, we're going to board you. Okay. Assuming that they don't have a radio, the only way to communicate with them would be, via like a bullhorn, shouting. Obviously, probably don't speak Danish or the same language. There's a language barrier there of some kind. So what the Danish Special Forces do is they take their weapons and they shoot in front of the pirate as the pirate's moving along. The pirate, not seeing this as a warning shot, as a shot across the bow, returns fire. Okay. So now you've got a pirate vessel of 8 people with their weapons, rifles, AK-47s and whatnot, firing on, returning fire, right, onto a special forces boat, a little ridge boat here. And a firefight ensues. And the helicopter's observing this whole thing. And then it turns out not a single Danish person was hit. 4 or 5 actually of the pirates were hit. 4 died, 1 is wounded, and they captured the remaining survivors. And that's what went down last Wednesday. And the real confusing thing here is, how do you communicate with these pirates to get them to slow down and be boarded if they don't have radios, they don't speak the language? You got to give them signals. And one of the signals that they went to right away, and maybe they should not have gone this far this fast, was they shot automatic fire in front of the boat. And that could have very easily been mistaken as, oh my God, they're shooting at us, let's shoot back. And it becomes, you've actually reversed the role to where now the pirates are the victim, which is not what anybody wants, because they're not. They're terrible people that will murder ship crews. If they can't get money for a ransom, they'll straight up kill people on these ships. These are not good people. But I think there was a big miscommunication there, an opportunity to do this peacefully that was not resolved or was not pursued. Anyway, so that's what happened. They killed 4 pirates, injured a 5th, and took the survivors into custody. And that's where it stays right now. I don't know where they're going to drop these guys off. Do they take them back? Let's see. Yeah, plans to deploy a frigate to escort merchant ships to prevent further attacks. So there's going to be an increased presence of Danish Navy ships now in this region. I'm curious as to what they do with the captured pirates. What are the rules with that? Let's see if it says they left Denmark in October. They plan on returning in April. Okay. And piracy is a major concern. Doesn't really say what they're going to do with the pirates. So I don't know. I don't know what they would do with them, but I think firing shots across the bow is certainly, in the steps of escalation. Absolutely it is. That's defensible. I just wonder if there was something else they could have done before shooting at them, because just based on the description given here, it looks like the pirates thought that they were being attacked. And so, of course, anybody would be right to defend themselves. And what they did was they just put the pirates in a position to look like the victim, probably due to a miscommunication. But the pirates also had clear indication with the helicopter overhead, assuming it was sunset but not nighttime. They definitely saw the rib boat coming after them. So I don't have any sympathy for them at all. It's a weird situation whenever you come up with these pirates. And just keep in mind that the pirates are there for pure profit, greed. They have no authority to do what they do. That's why they're pirates and not like a Coast Guard. So no sympathy from me for them. All right, let's move on to USS Connecticut. Some good news from her. She is underway. We reported that about 2 weeks ago. Not reported, we read a report that she was underway about 2 weeks ago. I suspected that she would return to Guam and do further repairs if they found anything. If not, she would go to the nearest dry dock. Well, she did not return to Guam. We know that now. So she is definitely in transit eastward to the United States. The question is, will she stop in Hawaii? Because the Pacific is a big freaking ocean. Stopping in Hawaii would be a nice break instead of just going straight to the West Coast. Or does she gut it out and just go straight to Bremerton, Washington, which that's a 5,000-mile trip. It's freaking very long from Guam to Washington. Now, the thing that's going to decide if she pulls in, I think, to Hawaii or not is if she's doing this transit on the surface. If she's doing it on the surface, she definitely has an escort. But life on board a submarine on the surface is very uncomfortable. You're always rocking and rolling. Things are swaying all over the place. It's very hard to get sleep. So after a few days underway like that, 5-6 days, the crew becomes almost catatonic because nobody's had a good night's sleep. You just catch little naps. And what you don't want to do is be, falling asleep on watch whenever you're at the helm and all that. Something that the piece does not discuss, and I think this is good, is whether or not it's under tow. Because if it's under tow, that's a whole different ballgame. One, she's going straight to Bremerton under tow, but you also don't have to have all the watchstanders. You can take a lot of those people off and fly them to Bremerton and have, a skeleton crew essentially manage the reactor and all that as she's being towed up there. Apparently they did repair the sonar dome, which was really impressive because that's normally a dry dock required event. So maybe there's something special about the Seawolf sonar dome where they were able to get it on, or they literally put people in scuba suits with air tanks into the sonar dome, which would be terrifying because it's really tight in there. And tightened the 300 some bolts that hold it on. And these are big honking bolts, It's not like your little 7/8 ratchet. No. It's big. Anyway, so that's what's going on with the Connecticut here. She's either going to pull into Hawaii because they don't want to do the trip all at once. Plus, it's dangerous to do it all at once. Or she's going to do it all at once, go right to Bremerton on her own with, I'm sure, some sort of escort. If she's allowed to submerge, she's not going to be allowed to submerge very deep. That's for sure. But just enough to get some speed up and make good time. That is the least likely thing that I think that they're going to allow them to do because she's still a damaged submarine. I don't care what inspections they did in Guam. She's not going to be certified until she's in a freaking dry dock and they do radiography on this hull to see if there's any of those micro fissures, anywhere along the hull. And then the third or the fourth was a tow. If she's being towed by, an ocean going tugboat, she would also have a military escort for that. And they'd go straight to Bremerton. So there's are your four options. One of those ends up in Hawaii. 3 of them end up going straight to Bremerton. We'll see where she pulls in when she pulls in. We don't have any other information than that. And there's really no news in this piece adding to what I just told you. But that's what's going on now with the Connecticut. Whenever she pulls in, we'll update you guys again to see what she's going through. Some things that have come out in the past week since we've done a naval news segment is France has rolls out, or I guess launched. This is a launching in today's world of the second Barracuda nuclear powered submarine. Yeah. So this has a operating nuclear reactor on it and they're backing it out and it will eventually go into the water there. So they built the second one. Nothing more really to add to that. But at the same time, look at this. India commissioned its 4th Scorpion submarine. This is a French design, but it's built 100% in India. And the 5th one out of 6 is doing sea trials right now. So my point is, the reason why I bring up these news stories back to back is that there's a lot of navies around the world making a lot of ships and submarines right now. It's not just China. It's not just Russia. It's certainly not the United States. We're hardly making anything that can fight anyway. But places like France are not only building their own nuclear submarines, they're also exporting a lot of their technology around the globe, including this design to India. They're going to build 6 of these in phase 1. So they're almost done with phase 1. The 5th Scorpion is doing sea trials right now. The 6th one is going to be built soon. And then they're planning a phase 2. Phase 2 is going to be 12 submarines, all of indigenous design, based on the lessons learned from building the Scorpion class. So it'll probably end up looking a lot like this one, but it'll be a completely independent of any of any contract. It won't have any French influence or any other nation. So everybody's building a lot of submarines, a lot of ships right now. And I wanted to try and put this into context for you. When was the last time we saw something like this besides the Cold War? And if we go all the way back to the early 20th century, we saw a naval arms race like this whenever the dreadnoughts were launched. So HMS Dreadnought, launched in 1906, over 100 years ago, kicked off this new line of naval production of these very large battleships that instantly made all the other smaller cruisers and destroyers practically obsolete overnight, just in the launching of this one. And we're kind of seeing that again with these new technologies, whether it's long fires, hypersonic weapons, satellite weapons, and all that. We're seeing a strong Navy buildup that can also take advantage of these. Like right now, the United States is designing a hypersonic missile that can be submarine launched through a VLS tube. Both on the Virginia and on the New Columbia class can launch this weapon. That's going to come, we think, in 2026 is the date for that to be operational. And that's so far in the future, that date can move around a lot. My point is, there is a new technology. In the 21st century, it's called long fires. Part of long fires are hypersonic weapons. Nations want to put these weapons on ships. Russia's already done it with their Zarkon missile. China's got it with their land-based DF-21 anti-ship ballistic missile they call the Carrier Killer. And along with this new weapon technology, we're seeing a massive, export or construction of ships around the world. And this led to eventually World War I, where we saw these dreadnoughts get into action in battles like Jutland and stuff like that. And I'm afraid that we're kind of repeating the mistakes of the 20th century. We're seeing very similar beats. That begins with new technology. All of a sudden it goes to the military. Everyone's building lots of weapons, lots of ships, lots of submarines. And we're just waiting for that, French, what's his name? Ferdinand moment, who kicked off an entire war over his assassination. What event can we prevent in the 21st century to keep that from happening now, to keep World War III or whatever war? It doesn't even have to be a world war anymore. Any war between major nations, whether it's Russia and China fighting each other, or America and pretty much anybody else fighting each other. How do we prevent that? How do we identify that moment and then saying, make sure that doesn't happen? Because what we're seeing right now is basically just a repeat of the 20th century. And I don't think it's going to end well. I hope I'm wrong. All right, let's see what chat has to say about this. You guys get to weigh in now. What do you guys think? A submarine race is not interesting to watch. That's very true. But you don't go to the submarine races to watch the submarines, sir. Anybody who grew up in the 70s and 80s knows exactly what the submarines are. So you think the invasion of Taiwan will be the moment? That certainly would be a big one. I can't disagree with you on that. Yeah. I think the occupying Taiwan will be a major drag on the Chinese economy and military. Both. They'll be like their Vietnam. If they try to occupy Taiwan, that's going to consume a lot of their resources. So I don't know if that's going to happen. A Kashmir breakout. Now that's something a few people have pointed out to me is the border between India, China, and that whole region. You have Pakistan in there too. Is very tumultuous. It can get very violent. Shots have been fired in that region back and forth. People have been killed. And so that's kind of a hot spot as well. So those are two areas of the globe that we can look at and say, okay, this is the weather bell of what is to come. Is it the land invasion of Taiwan, or Kashmir blowing up into a larger conflict than just the localized trouble that it's been in now? Russians reinvading Ukraine. That's a great point. Russia, for those of you that don't know, and maybe we should do a naval news segment on this, has been moving armored divisions from their garrisons where they normally spend the winter to cities like Novorossiysk, closer to the Ukraine border. They're not right on the Ukraine border, but they're a short drive away from the Ukraine border. And it's also not where they're normally stationed. So like, ships have a home port. Normally, when you're not doing your missions or whatever you're doing, you go back to your home port. Imagine a ship, instead of going back to its home port, it goes to a port that's very near a border of a country that you don't like, that you've had previous recent conflicts with. That's what's going on with Russia. Everybody that I talk to that is smarter than me and knows, and has, works for a CSIS or, is in these think tanks. Everyone believes Russia's going to invade Ukraine. That's like a fait accompli. It's happening. The question is, what does anybody do about it? And right now, Ukraine ain't got no friends. There is one gentleman, I think on Friday, was telling me that Norway promised to defend Ukraine. Good luck. All right. Do you know who's not promising to defend Ukraine? NATO. Yeah. So, we'll see how that goes. So that's three hot spots for you to look out for. Ukraine, which I'm telling you right now is going to happen. Taiwan, I'm telling you is not going to happen, but watch out for it. And Kashmir. Kashmir is such a random ass hotspot that blows up and cools down, every couple of years. You never know what's going to happen there. The thing with Kashmir is that nobody knows about that little conflict, at least on the United States side. And that could catch everybody off guard. If you find, two nuclear powers fighting with each other over a region of the world that most Americans can't find on the map, India and China, I'm talking about, going at each other. That could be a real nightmare. Because one, America doesn't like being left out of a war. How dare you start one without us? We're going to pick a side. It probably won't be China's to get involved with. See, the collapse of Belarus. I don't know much about that one. I'll have to learn about that one. Anyway, so that's enough speculation from me in the chat today. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below. See if there's any other hotspots we did not talk about, like Belarus, like the gentleman just said. And we'll definitely read them. All right. Thanks for watching the Naval News. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Bye-bye.